Good afternoon, everybody. We'll call this work session to order. The first item on our agenda is the review of the budget for FY 15-16. So we'll invite our finance director back up. I think you sent us a new review packet in our latest conversation, sort of updated with the conversations we've had on the budget adjustments. This still assumes the 2-cent increase, correct?
Correct. So what I've done since last week, I'm bringing the same schedule back with just one column. The column for all the items that it sounded like, for the most part, that we've discussed the past couple of weeks, and that everybody was in favor of having be some type of savings or reduction or slight increase to the revenue. And then just layout-wise, included subtotals so that we could quickly and easily see those items where we were reducing the expenditures versus recommending usage of fund balance reserve money for certain projects. And then last, the impact of what the 2-cent tax rate increase would have on our real property revenue values.
Which leaves a net surplus of $77,000 based on those adjustments. So it's balanced.
Correct. And we tried with the items to include wording so that when we talk about public works supervisor, we realize that we are actually eliminating that position and that we're going to have a savings of $70,000 from that action. So do we want to walk back through all of these items at this time? I know that a little bit later in the meeting, we're going to do the introduction for the budget as well as the introduction of the ordinance for the tax rate. I did not yet prepare those two documents. I was waiting to see what the final outcomes of this meeting were so that I could have final numbers for us. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Mr. Elshire.
I guess I can go two directions.
The first is the direction of diminishing the $77,000 to the good. With adding a project, for me, it would be the police radio project. That's just because on here, I've seen the police, they've taken a bit more hits in the total list than any other entity, knowing that they're the largest entity. The other direction I could take is the suggestion that Penny had, which was to unfund the fire trainee position or public education position. I forget what it was called.
Captains.
It was fire training captain, but the
Yeah.
job description
It was
had
to
been
incorporate
changed. Which,
Weller's position
Right.
into that, which I don't know how that's gonna be possible.
which would leave you, which would afford you the ability to cut the half a cent, the 120,000, leave you about 30,000 to the good. And I guess if I had to put that towards something, it'd be the city park tree lighting. So those are the two directions that I would offer, are areas that I would be comfortable with. Any other thoughts on that?
I would be agreeable with either one of those. The one thing I think we should include in funding in this budget that we don't have after last week, I'm a strong proponent to find $3,000 towards funding the Maryland Food Bank. And candidly, I think it could be taken from the CRS budget of $45,000. I'm not sure why we haven't looked a whole lot more carefully at that. I think CRS, if I am correct, has a fairly significant reserve fund, and we're giving $45,000 to an organization. Essentially what we're doing, I mean, you know, you can look at it from a bunch of different ways, but under this budget, what we're doing is we're spending $45,000 of our reserve fund to give to them when they have a reserve fund. Some of that doesn't make sense, but I certainly would encourage us to take at least $3,000 and shift it. That doesn't involve anything here. And I would be more inclined if we were going to go in one direction towards a reduction versus funding other things. But I could go either way. Where Kristen is coming from, you could get rid of another half cent. But
I would,
I'm sorry, I was just saying, I'm more interested in hearing from people who oppose this scenario of what we can do.
I would support option B that Kristen outlined. I would support holding the training position open, not eliminating it, giving the philosophy of giving the new city manager maximum flexibility to look at the budget in the way she can come in with a no tax increase budget next year, which I would hope we can. And with the 77,000, that would let us take half a cent off, and I think 1.5 cents. I proposed that we go to 0, but if we can get 4 or 5 votes for the increase, I will join in.
I would have no problem with one.
And I would agree with Lou, particularly about the food. This chart that we got on the computer today pretty clearly demonstrates how important that is. And I can live with the changes that Marty is suggesting as well.
So, just for clarity here, what
So
we're
you
talking about
keep
is,
this, but we'll reduce the tax increase by half cents.
Well, the training position would allow us to do that. Yeah.
Training position.
Yeah.
So this and the
Not
training.
taking the position, but not funding it at this time.
Right.
Right, so you're not eliminating, but you're not going to have funding for it in the budget, so it
Right.
won't get budgeted
Right.
for, won't be filled next year.
We'll leave that for the city. Well, it could be if there's other manipulations could take
Right,
place.
and you're concerned, Lou,
It could be if they can find the money somewhere
Gotcha.
else and bring
Right.
it back to
I
us.
have no
And
problem.
that's the same with the economic development
I
director.
have no problems with that.
If they can find the money, bring that position back.
So
I
instead
think
of
we
a
need it.
2-cent increase, we'd be looking at a 1.5 cent increase, and all these adjustments would take place plus that 70. I have no problems with that.
so, yeah, sure. And so what Kristen was proposing was to add back the police radios, is that what everybody's talking about?
No.
That was only if you stayed at the 77. If you
Oh,
do
I
the half
gotcha.
cent decrease, it leaves you 35 to the good, right?
I see.
And on at 35, all I was saying is, I was trying to find something small. And to me, the city park lighting project seems to address a number of needs within that park.
So if you start with the 77,000 at the bottom, then you'd add 73,000 to unfund the fire captain, if
Right.
I'm tracking you right.
That's my understanding.
Then you would lower the property tax rate increase by 1/2 cent, which, Michelle, would be
The
the
100.
120,500. And that would leave you 30,000 or 29,500 surplus, which Councilmember Elshire is saying, then restore 20,000 from,
And I'll say take 3,000 out of that for the food bank and the rest
Yeah,
of the
I
police
agree.
radio.
yeah.
Take
Kristen,
3,000
can you
out
live
of
with
the
that?
food bank.
So we would restore the 20,000 up under general fund CIP, right, the second
Instead of
item?
taking it out of CRS, which is,
Right,
I
have
don't
no
want us to
problem.
open up that
I
whole
have no
thing.
problem with that. Sorry, Bruce.
No, that's all right. So on Michelle's column, we're restoring the 20,000, Councilmember Elshire, the second item under general fund CIP expenditures, is that what we're saying?
That was my suggestion.
So we restore that 20,000, and then we add 3,000 for the Maryland Food Bank.
Yes.
Did you catch all those, Michelle?
And I just want to make sure, so the 3,000 that we're adding for the food bank is above and beyond. Right now, we have a lump sum total in the fiscal year 16 budget of 15,000 for unspecified agencies, which is what we asked to have when we did the policy. So instead of having 15, we're going to bump it up to 18 and go ahead and allocate 3,000 to the
Now, I'm
food
in
bank
favor of finding it within those current constraints.
within the 15, so I'm not
This-
adding anything.
This
All right,
fit,
I missed it, that's fine too.
Because I'm not in favor of fair funding the Maryland Food Bank to begin with, so I will stomach that.
But would you object, Councilmember Alshire, if we took that 3,000 out of the 15
That's
un-
how you guys want to
Okay.
carve it
I
up.
won't
I'm sure
object
I can,
anyway, it's
I'm sure
done.
I can take a vote at that appropriate.
That's fine.
So we take the 3,000
Out
off.
of the 15 is fine.
That's
That's fine
fine.
with me.
That's
Column
fine.
adjustment.
That makes it nice and easy and clean. Well, we had it there.
So in order to compromise all the things that are on this list, we're going to unfund a fire captain position. We're going to do a further reduction or eliminate a 0.5 cent property tax rate increase. So that means our property tax rate increase would be 1.5 cents. And then we're going to restore City Park project that was $20,000 on this list.
Yes.
And then separately, we'll have conversations later. We'll bring back agency contributions the way the policy stipulates on this
And that-
unspecified.
And I want to emphasize that the money in fire doesn't mean that money is earmarked for fire. It's part of general budget strategy. It is not earmarked or in any way, as far as I'm concerned, for fire, the fire department. It's part of a general budget strategy.
Councilmember Munson?
I can live with that. Michelle, obviously, we're going to have a different one of these next week. Would you make it as clear as this one is? Because that way everybody will have a very good understanding of what's
And you
happening
may
here
even be able to
before we
bring that
vote.
back to us for our special session
Yeah.
later,
I
right?
think you should,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
I think she can bring it back.
Yeah.
That'll be the number that goes in the introduction.
And you have a balance of 9,500 is what I calculated.
Ms. Knox?
And I think I had 500 in there, 480 some before, so,
Plus, yeah.
okay.
And then if I could, just to confirm for next week's meeting on the budget, for FY 15-16, the one employee group that we don't have approved wage increases for right now, other than IBEW, which is deferring their union negotiations on their open contract to a later time. But the non-union, we have a separate motion, generally on the night you adopt the budget, to approve wage adjustment for non-union employees. What we have in the budget, and it's somewhat consistent with the unions, it's on page 7 of section 1, is a 1% COLA and one step effective in July of 15. Are we okay putting that motion on your agenda for next Tuesday for the non-union employees?
Absolutely.
It's already
You don't need to take action for police, fire, or 1540 at this point, because they've already got approved wage adjustments for 1516. But we don't have an approval, a non-union for 1516.
And it's already been budgeted for.
It's budgeted for, it was anticipated, I
Yes, it
think.
was in the budget.
Yes,
It's
yes. it was-
generally not as favorable as the union agreements, as I understand it.
Everyone else okay with that?
Yeah.
So we'll have that motion added to the agenda for next Tuesday then.
Okay.
Thank you,
I'll make these
Michelle.
changes.
All right, whoa, guys,
Sorry.
sorry, Mayor.
Please.
I'm still not happy with the part-time position going full-time in Parks and Rec. We purchased software so that that whole department could run more smoothly. There's less that is being done, and will, with software as it goes on, is going to continue that way. And if we have extra money, as in Rodney said about revenue because of seasonals leaving, the whole thought process with me is that the park guards, I don't know how you can do it, because park guards there is park guards over here, is that somewhere we need to increase doing something, because we are not being too good when it comes to taking care of what's happening in the parks. And fairgrounds being the most active park, we have got problems, major problems. I have adults who will not take their children to the upper part off of Cannon Avenue, and that is because of the vulgarity, the drinking that takes place, and the selling of drugs that take place. Now, these people are seeing it. They don't have to tell me willy-nilly, but this is what's happening, and that is a huge, huge park. And I just cannot, for the life of me, see funding this position when Amy is there And regardless of all of the programs still are they are contracted out, and the person who is contracting them is the one that is basically putting it together. And that's what I don't get. And then today I get a phone call about the yard sale, and at one time, and this one really blew my mind, it was the recreation person that also took care of that, and now that fell back on Kathy and Junior, and I don't quite understand that.
But yeah, Kathy's been relieved of other responsibilities, and that's why we rolled some of that over to her. I guess I would say on the software, the active software, what that really allowed us to do was, number one, allow people to register online if they wanted to. And I think it also freed up all the staff time from having to take paper applications. If Michelle wanted to sign up for whatever, kickball, she would have had to fill out a paper application. It would have went into our office, and we would have had to process it that way, take the payment that way. With the active software, we were able to do everything online, so the staff really has very little to do with that. But what that has allowed us to do then is create more programs, because we're not bogged down with all this paperwork that we were doing before. So all these different programs require people to run them, require people to be able to get the venue wherever this thing's going to be held. We have to get that all scheduled. All the administrative things of running the different programs, and that's what this
And really,
person would
it's
do.
to coordinate all those vendors who are offering more and more programs
Right.
so that more and more people visit our parks.
Those
Am I-
vendors are there, those vendors are doing what they need to do, and that's,
Right. But as
the
someone
bottom
who's-
line is, I still can't
someone
see
who's
it going
signed up
from
for one
a
of those
part-time
programs and-
to a full-time for another $18,000.
But my understanding in the budget is it's not really costing any more money out of the general fund, because those costs were proposed to be picked up by the increase in participation
When
in
we hire
programs.
somebody else to run a program for us, like bird watching or something like that, they get a percentage and we get a percentage. We really
Correct.
can't lose.
Right.
So the percentage that we get, we're taking a little bit from this one, a little bit from this one, a little bit from this one.
But
and that's
has
where again,
the-
will help pay for
But
it.
has the expenditures outweighed the money that is coming in? That's what I asked you the other
No,
week.
no, I don't think so.
And
There's
to
some
what
adverti-
degree? I mean, this is what I'm not seeing, Rodney, and this is what has blown my mind, because there's too many people that's doing too many things, and I'm wondering, okay, why is it that this person has to do this and this? And I said before, I don't
Well, we want
quite
more people visiting our
understand.
parks and participating
And I
in
didn't say
programs.
that wasn't,
But that's, I think,
okay.
what this position will allow us to
We
do.
continue to add on and add on, Mayor, okay? And at some point, when is all of this thing gonna maybe kick Emily out of the seat of not having a job, when we all get caught up? Then how do you feel then, you know?
I don't know what you
When you
mean.
get caught up with software is doing its thing, and we have, that we're being caught up, eventually, that could phase away.
But we're talking about the budget, and in the budget.
Well, so am I.
being-
You know what?
but
I
being-
just don't like that part of it, and I just don't think it
But
should happen, and
I
that's the
think-
end of my comment.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure it's clear that what's being proposed in
Well, I
making
know
that
what's
position
clear.
full-time is that it's basically being paid for by itself through increase in programs, not coming out of general fund.
Then please maintain the fairgrounds as the fairgrounds should be maintained, and public safety over there that we don't have. And don't tell me put a police officer over there, because we certainly can't do that, because we've got umpteen of them in the downtown, all right? We've got major problems, and I know we do. And this is why we cannot hold on to a lot of what we have in these parks, because they are not being paid significant money either. And I realize that's only a seasonal, but I would love to see retirees come in that in fact were police officers, some type of security, that they know what they're doing.
Well, maybe
Because
that's
it's not
Maybe
happening.
that's an avenue to explore.
It's not happening, okay?
We budget for park attendants, full staff of park attendants, assuming that they're going to work through the whole 30-week
Right.
season. Inevitably, what happens is some of them leave August, September, so that's extra money that we have. And what we've said here is some of that money, that 7,500 of that dollars, we're just going to apply towards this full-time position.
So there's not necessarily increasing any
No, we're
amount of
actually decreasing
funding.
that part of our budget because we rarely spend it because people leave, and then we can't replace
He's
them in
always
August.
assuming they're leaving. That's assuming they're leaving, okay?
Well, I guess
The
it's
track record
based on
maybe.
Right,
past
the track record,
performance,
and
right?
Rodney, I'm not arguing that point with you, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to this park, you have to really do diligence over here, because we're gonna end up with more and more of a major problem as it goes.
Understood.
Okay.
And with the software, I just do want to put a plug in for our ActiveNet software. It actually is one of the easier implementations that we have had. They charge us a fee based on people using it. So if we have a time frame when nobody is processing any registrations and nobody's processing a credit card or any type of payment, they don't charge us a fee. Which is nice. Most companies don't do that. The other reason that we really had to look at this is because, more and more people were saying to Rodney, I don't carry checks and I don't carry cash. Here's my credit card. We weren't able to accommodate credit card payments in any other manner right now outside of our software.
I've
system.
used the system, and I think it was very smooth, very effective and efficient. But your comments are duly noted, Councilmember Nye.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments about the budget? I think we've come to some resolution here about what has gained some consensus. Mr. Munson, you look like you have something you want to say.
Well, Penny raised an issue which is not a budget issue, but I think I'll amplify it on a little bit. The yard sales that are conducted at the fairgrounds, because of the rules and regulations that have been set up, those people are unable to unload their vehicles, no matter how much stuff they have or how heavy it is, at their stalls. I don't quite understand the rationale for that. I don't think there is any rationale for that. Most of those people are old people, or older people, not old people, older people. And they're not in a position where they're in good enough health, most of them, where they can use carts to go back and forth for a long distance. I talked to Bruce about this issue, and I talked to the head of our Parks Department about this issue in hopes that we could get it resolved. But I got a call today that said that an individual who called it to my attention, and I believe to Penny's attention now, was just literally blown off by the Parks Department. And I'm not, I just understand it's not exactly a budget problem, although it would be a good reason not to vote for the budget until the problem gets solved, because this isn't something that Albert Einstein needs to be involved in to solve the problem. Rodney, I don't think I've talked to you about it. Maybe you can pound some sense into somebody's head and allow those people to be able to get to their stalls to put their merchandise in, and when they're finished, to take their merchandise out. Now, I know there's an issue with parking in the grass and in the mud and so on, and these people are not looking for that. They're willing to park their cars at some distance away. And I just I can't comprehend why something as simple as this can't be worked out.
I think it's a complete breakdown of communication.
And that's what I said, that's why I told you.
I don't think it's nearly as bad as you're portraying or they're portraying to you, and I think there is a reasonable solution that I think we'd like to implement. What we're saying is we don't want them to drive up onto the path, block the path with their cars, block the path with their goods that they're selling, maybe within 20 feet of the path. That's where we're kind of drawing the line. So I think I need to put together maybe an exhibit that shows what we're trying to do there.
There was a call yesterday that apparently it turned into a very nasty situation.
Okay.
And we don't need any more of them.
All right, I'll take care of it.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I think everything worked out well.
All right. Moving on to our preliminary agenda review. I noticed I have the invocations, so I'm going to make a note to myself about that. Just to review our meeting schedule, well, also, we just amended this slightly to include a 4:30 executive session. We'll have a 5 o'clock work session, and then a 7 o'clock regular session.
What is the 5 o'clock work session?
Well, there were some items that we were originally looking to put on tonight, but because I'm going to be attending the USMH graduation at 6 p.m., I removed some of those items from tonight's work session
I just didn't know,
and
but
just delayed them a week.
Ordinary work session type items.
Right, nothing big. It's going to be the update on the Veterans Banner Project, some possible second Saturday events, some other things Karen's bringing to us, and building and trade code updates. Those are the 3 items that we have.
So we have an executive session also,
4:30.
4:30?
Mm-hmm. So 4:30 executive session, 5 o'clock work session, 7 o'clock regular session. We hopefully will be done the work session within an hour, so that'll give us everybody a break for a break. For June, we'll have 4 meetings. The last week of June is MML, so there's 5 Tuesdays in June. We'll have a meeting on the 2nd, the 9th, and 16th at 4 p.m. And then Tuesday, the 23rd, is our regular session. The next week is MML. Is everyone going to MML? Kristen, are you going? 4 of us are going. I know Lou's going to be recognized for his 20 years of service down there.
Grizzled
So
veteran.
that'll be good. It really is a fantastic opportunity to network, and I learn a lot and bring a lot back, and staff probably hate the week after I got back because I'm always bringing them all these great new ideas. And I think we'll have some appointments from our for our appointments that we reviewed in executive session will be on the agenda. Have a few guests. I wanted to just say, I'm sorry? 4:30. I do want to give Donna a lot of credit for the minutes that she does. I mean, I can't imagine how much time that takes, and I've already suggested to her that there's got to be technology out there that can take what we're putting into these microphones and just create text right away so that she doesn't have to spend hours and hours reviewing that. You have that in Myersville? Well, you'll have to talk to Donna about that. Because it's got, I mean, I know she takes a lot of time and care with those, and I appreciate that.
Or you'd be like Frederick, and it's like 1 page. We talked about this was a decision. We talked about this was.
Yeah, well, I think everybody likes to read the meat and potatoes of the conversation. All right, let's go through the consent agenda. Yes, we do have guests. We'll have the 35th anniversary of the Hagerstown Suns and the centennial anniversary of baseball in Hagerstown, and we'll have our Preservation Month awards. The consent agenda includes a couple items for community and economic development, and one of those is the Chick-fil-A 5K on July 25th, 2015, the August 29th Summer Slide Festival. Any questions on those? I personally am looking forward to the slide event and think the council should only approve it if I get to go first down the slide. Does anyone want to know more about that? I see Melissa from What's Next is here. Do you want to just come tell us more about it? I'm excited about it personally.
Yeah.
I've seen that these things are coming
Use the
to.
pulpit here to tell us.
They're coming to other cities, and I know that this can be a really great draw for some.
You want me right here? Is that what you're saying?
Sure. Yeah, tell us more about
Yeah,
it.
tell us more about it.
Sure, I actually have a little map for you.
And the hill is steep enough? We get a good slide in?
Yes, actually.
It meets the
actually-
grade requirements?
Yes, we've already worked with the city to get some information on distance and the grade, so we will be able to move pretty fast. But basically, we would love to have a big slide down Washington Street from Prospect to University Park. And as you can see on the map, this will also include some food trucks, kids' activities, other vendors, and we have already rented University Plaza just in case we would like to have a beer garden in that area with an art market as well as bands for the day. The event would run 11 to 4. We're involving the downtown movement and also the Maryland Theater.
Move the mic a little closer to you. Is that it?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So So it's designed to be a really fun community event. With Downtown Movement, they want to do the art market and maybe have some pop-up shops as well. So we like to involve local businesses as well. So anyone who wants to participate as a vendor that's a downtown business or a nonprofit, they can do so for free.
And this fits right in with what Urban Partners told us we need to do, which is have more events that draw people downtown, and this is just another great example of that.
There
It'll be
is
a back-to-school slide festival, I guess, right before the school year starts.
They would have to get all their permits, amusement.
Yeah, you have to get an inspector to come in and
Yeah.
inspect it.
Yes.
How is it being constructed?
The slide itself will be 820 feet long, and that will be constructed in 10 82.5 slide pieces that will be constructed, and in between, there will be a base layer between the street and then the slide itself.
So it's gonna be made out of plastic, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
similar to what you've seen.
Is it
for
inflatable, or?
Slide in the City. It is.
Okay.
Those side rails will be
Okay.
inflatable. And then
Trying to
we've
picture
also.
it in my mind.
Yes. We've also talked to the city about metering some of the water coming out, and we've designed a mechanism for that as well to keep the water flowing.
And they're only asking for street closures. They are asking for, to work with the Maryland Theater to sell alcohol only in University Plaza, and they will pay for all city services.
Yes.
Great.
There are several things that we will need, but yes, the Maryland Theater has agreed to work with us regarding the beer garden, keeping it just inside University Park.
Which would mean we'd come back with an application permit if approved.
Thanks.
And there is no charge?
No, there is a charge to slide, but
There
there's
is.
no charge to enter the festival as a whole, so you can come down and enjoy lunch. You can listen to the music that's coming from University Plaza. The kids can play on the bounce houses. You can visit the vendor booths.
Looking forward to it. Any objections? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And did anyone have any question about the Chick-fil-A 5K now that Karen's here? I don't know if anyone is here for that particular event.
I think we're running a little early.
Oh, we
so
are,
may-
indeed.
Oh, okay, I'm
okay.
sorry, Randy, I'm sorry. This is Randy Scott from
Sure.
Chick-fil-A.
Ben's got a copy of the race map here. if you need it.
Okay.
Very good. I won't waste your time explaining what a 5K is. So, any questions for me?
It's
Basically, it's the route that the,
St. Patty's
St. Patty's
Day and
Day.
the superhero, but it would start and end at City Park. Would take a state highway permit, which they would apply for, and they would pay for city services.
And what was the date on that?
July 25th.
and what's the cause?
We'll be raising money for Blue Ribbons for Justice. We've done it, as you probably know if you're familiar with us, we've partnered with just about every organization in town over the years, and we decided, you know what, to branch out and host our own event in town and honestly make it as big as successful as we can, putting our brand behind it. So we're partnering with
This is
Connect.
prevention of child abuse.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
just wanna
Yes,
make
very
sure
good,
it's
thank
clear.
you. And we're partnering with Connect Series Racing. They're a national vendor that we've seen exceptional presence from at other events. So we're planning on a greatly executed, well-executed event, so.
Will this be an annual event in downtown Hagerstown?
We would hope so.
From here on out?
We would hope so, and it's kind of funny, we looked at different ways and places that we could hold the event, and through my last 6 or 8 years with Leadership Washington County, I've really grown passionate about downtown Hagerstown, and have spent a lot of time downtown with my office now down here, and really insisted that we hold it downtown if we can, and that would be the plan in the future as well.
Very good.
They would also get highway permit, they would get insurance, and then also notify the neighborhood of the run as well.
Great. Any questions or comments, objections? All right.
I think we really ought to say we appreciate
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A's efforts. This being a new project, but it's likely to continue for years.
As well as what's next. I mean, this is something that they've seen be successful in other communities and are taking the risk to make this happen here in Hagerstown too, so.
We had a logistics meeting today of events coming up, and we are really, it's interesting, the number of events that are coming through our office right now to review, look at, and we're kind of looking at processes, how we can stream that line a little better too.
And, you know, and I know 5Ks are increasingly popular. Has there been any thought of looking at routes for 5Ks that don't necessarily close down as many streets?
Yes, we
for
talked
as long?
about that today, maybe doing some routes that you can choose from, and then also doing an application process as a whole if you do any event in the
Because I do
city.
think it's good to have these events as close to
Yes,
downtown as
exactly.
possible, but being someone who didn't have, you know, had all the streets in my neighborhood closed down around me, it does become difficult to navigate, you know, to go
And
places.
safety, we want to make
Right.
sure everybody's safe and where they need to be.
But I would say just, I was wondering now that you brought it up, and I don't want to change this route now, but,
Okay.
but in the future, maybe a little bit more of downtown than what's shown here. I would go the other way. Oh, I don't know how many times I've been, had to do something in the District of Columbia, and they've had roads closed for races, for, you know, various marathons and 5Ks and so forth, and boy, talk about messing things up. So I think we're minor leaguers compared to that, but I would like to highlight even more of downtown. Now, this is a great route running around the park and everything, so I don't want to fool with it, but something to think about.
It sounds like you're on top of the
Yes,
increasing demand.
and we're hoping to come back later summer, early fall on a streamlined process with that.
Sounds good.
Any guess as to how many runners will show up?
You had thought a couple hundred, right, Randy?
We really, we're hoping for a great number. I would hope a couple hundred at an absolute minimum for our first run at this event, but we hope it's much greater. That's what it's all about.
I think the experience of most people who've done them is that they only increase over the
Yeah,
years.
the superhero run had approximately 180.
And that was their first, right?
Yes, so I think as it also depended on weather,
True, very true.
but definitely growing in excitement and people that want to run.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
We appreciate your efforts. Also, under the consent agenda, item B, Light Department has emergency procurement for repairs to a lower boom assembly. Does anyone have any questions about that particular item?
Which we've already started the procurement just because of the requirements for the equipment. That's why it's labeled an emergency procurement.
How old is that truck?
12 years. Yeah, 12 years old.
12? Okay, it probably needs a lift then.
All right, moving on to C, Department of Parks and Engineering, the handicap ramp contract with Concrete Central LLC. Any questions on that one? All right, moving on, under unfinished business, we'll have the approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 117, the recycling and refuse collection, establishing a fee for abatement violations and clarifying code language. Also, the approval of an ordinance for both the tax rate and the budget, which we'll introduce later this afternoon. Any questions on the unfinished business? All right, we have the new business, item A, the introduction of an ordinance, local amendments.
That's, go ahead, I'm sorry. That's work session next week. We'll
Okay,
do that.
yeah, so we'll be talking about those. Items A through C, I guess, right, or D.
D.
The introduction of those various ordinances, and that's to make them in line with the national standards and changes that have been made. Any questions on those right away? All right, and then we have the series of leases, items E through L, I believe, are all residential leases. Any questions about any of those?
Mayor,
Sure.
could they possibly be combined into one motion?
we'll do two.
Yeah, one for water and one for the parks. So there'll be two motions, but they will be combined.
Okay, good.
Please. Can we go back to A through D? I had a source tell me that there are problems with the state codes, which we are required to adopt, and many of the building codes, in terms of urban situations, that there's some stuff that makes it fairly difficult. And I guess I'd like to, while we don't have to do a total exploration, whether there's things in the state code that could be changed to make it easier to rehab and deal with our older structures downtown. I've had it brought to my attention. I can't say the source, but, and I can try to get some specifics, but I'd like at least start the conversation on that.
Well, and we'll have this in the work session next Tuesday?
Well,
I mean, we were intending to.
if we have problems, I'd like to know if we do, that, you know, exploring ways to deal with them. If we think the state codes are fine for our buildings, or we can make it as a separate agenda item, but I would like to look at that. Use your judgment if it needs to be a separate agenda item. That just brought it to my attention, because we would pretty much automatically do pass-throughs of state code things, and I'm talking about state code requirements that we have to adopt.
Well, maybe in the meantime, between now and next Tuesday, if staff have any concerns or anything like
Yeah.
that, they can prepare for that discussion next week before we move into the introduction of those changes. All right, so any questions about items E through L, the residential leases? We also have item M, the lease renewal with the state of Maryland for their space there at 14 North Potomac Street. Any questions on that? The approval of Park Circle Green Street contract, which we'll be discussing shortly. Any questions on that? Well, save your questions. Approval, item O, of a contract to Community Action Council to distribute utility relief funds. Any questions on this one?
I'll save my comments for the meeting.
For the meeting? Oh, at the end? Well, maybe Bruce can. Okay, come on up and explain the rationale here.
We hosted, this is Kim Buchanan, and we hosted a utility relief concert in the fall. The city helped to fund the concert, and then we received about $6,000 in revenues to distribute it. And we are working with Community Action Council to distribute the funds. So we wanted to create a contract so that the funds would transfer to Community Action Council. They would have a utility relief fair and then distribute the funds.
Because right now, we're sort of raising money to pay us, and so it's a little complicated.
Well, the concert.
Or the
yeah.
city is having to decide who is gonna get it.
Well, we house the money right now.
Right.
And we haven't been in the past. We've worked with Community Action Council in the past to distribute the money. And
this
so
agreement
we
will
thought this time
formalize
that we
that.
should do a formalized contract with them.
Any
And it was designated gifts for this.
questions or comments on that?
And this is Kim Buchanan from Community Action Council.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Kim.
Thank you once again for doing this concert that enable us to have these funds that we can help people with. We appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks. Item P is the approval of stop-loss insurance. Any questions on that item? Item Q is the approval of administration of medical claims, United Healthcare. Any questions on that one? Item R is the approval of administration of dental claims. Any questions on that? And then the last item, as Bruce mentioned earlier, is the non-union wage adjustment. Will also be on there. All right, any questions about the preliminary agenda for next week? Well, thank you for that. We're going to move on to the announcement of the Blues Fest winner.
year, we do a T-shirt contest for children with the Blues Fest. And this year, we had about 40 entries. This is our poster of the runners-up. With us today is Jennifer Nagel, if she would like to come up. Jennifer did this drawing, which will then become the children's T-shirt at the Blues Fest. And I'm going to pass that around for everybody to see. And we wanted to give her a little gift now. She'll get some things later on at the Blues Fest and have a picture with the mayor. So if we could do that now, that would be great.
Sure.
And Jennifer is from Boonesboro Middle. And Mayor, here's a little gift for her too. And I believe her grandmother wanted to take a photo too.
Oh, you got some good stuff. Great. Well, thank you so much for contributing your creativity and for being the winner. Congratulations. And do you want to, should we get a picture maybe? You can get everybody in the picture too if you take from back here.
You guys want to go up and take a picture with Ms. Nagel?
That's the mayor.
Okay. And here's a sneak peek at our 20th annual Blues Fest program coming out this Sunday.
Maybe for the picture we can have her have the poster. Can you hold it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom, can we see that? Very nice. Tell us where I listen to whatever you tell me to do.
Thank you.
That's very nice. What grade are you in? Seventh grade, Boonesboro Middle?
Yeah.
Cool. Congratulations. You're the winner. Can't wait to see the shirts.
And Mr. Mayor, all the winner, the runner-up, and all the honorable mention will be on display at the Washington County Arts Council at the month-long exhibit with Corey Householder, the Blues Fest poster artist. So we try to include youth in all we do with our festivals.
Congratulations, Jennifer. Good job. Give her a round.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Did you have a chance to see this?
Oh, does it go back to? Karen, do you need this poster? Oh, okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have some information about the Maryland Theater 100th anniversary celebration. Is Jessica here? Yeah, she is.
Good evening.
Counting down. It's exciting.
We are. I won't take up much of your time. I just wanted to come here personally and to invite each of you to come and celebrate with the Maryland Theater for its 100th birthday celebration, June 20th at 6 p.m. By now, you should have each received your own invitation in the mail, and it is completely open to the public. So please encourage people to go on our website or give us a call to purchase their tickets. But it will be held at the Ryder Jet Center hangar, which, believe it or not, is going to be transformed into a crystal white ballroom for a black tie, formal gala, dinner, dancing, entertainment. We've chosen our keynote speaker as Mr. Bob Eubanks, who became a household name.
The game show host.
Yes, exactly. However, he had much more success in his concert promotions with bands such as the Beatles, and he has a lot of experience managing a historic theater on the West Coast. So he will definitely be speaking about the value of a historic theater in a community and what it can bring for arts and entertainment. Also wanted to thank you for your sponsorship of the dessert for the evening. So the city will be recognized for that sponsorship. That's this fiscal year.
Tell us why you
budget.
chose the Ryder Center all the way out there at the airport.
Well, I wasn't here during the 95th celebration, but as you may know, the theater doesn't offer space for a sit-down dinner. And for the
Yet.
95th, right, yet. And for the 95th, that sit-down dinner was held out in the street, tented. It caused a lot of logistic hurdles.
So it's basically
It
trying
was
to
a
find a
wonderful
place where you can
event,
have that
but
many
we
people.
right,
all in one
and
place.
we wanted to make it different than the 95th and not just a complete repeat. The venue was donated, and they have
That's
a
a good
nice
answer.
new facility out there.
That's all you needed to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. So.
Can I borrow your magazine about the Maryland Theater?
But yes, that's really all I had. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware, and please come celebrate with us.
Jessica, while you're here, I just wanted to compliment you. I know you had a lot to do with this, on this magazine. I had a chance to pick this up over the weekend, and I read over it, and it's a very nice piece of work. It's a good piece of history.
Good. Thank you very much. I won't take all the compliments. We had a very big partner in that piece was the Herald Mail, so
Right.
we're very grateful to them.
Thank you.
That keepsake publication is available at the theater, the CVB. It doesn't cost anything, so please take the chance to pick one up, or you'll get one at the 100th celebration. So.
And people can register online or at the
That's right.
office?
Yeah, just call the box office. You can purchase online. Stop in to see us, either one.
June 20th.
June 20th,
Black
6
tie then,
p.m.,
right?
black tie. We won't kick you out if you're wearing a dark blazer.
That's all I have, it's my uniform.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the Memorial Boulevard Park Circle.
I guess I'd like to kind of present this kind of in how it evolved for us as staff, and then in the end, the big picture here is we'd like to look at the overall operations of the circle. But first, let me start out by saying, well, if you look at the screens up here, this is an aerial shot of Park Circle. City Park would be to the left of the screen. Summit Avenue is to the far right of the screen. So north would be up. So the green area is the area between Virginia Avenue and Summit Avenue that is just an inordinately wide piece of street. We applied for a grant a year ago to Chesapeake Bay Trust to try to chip away at some of our stormwater issues, and we were awarded the grant to eliminate some of the paving in here, to create what they call a bioretention area, which basically the runoff from the street goes into that green area, and the plants and sod that's in that area digests some of the nutrients. It soaks down through. There's a under drain that then allows that water to go into Marsh Run. So it's a way of cleaning the runoff from the street. So we have that grant, and that work was put out to bid. And one of the items I think that would come out of this will be the award of that contract. That contract also includes the 2 green islands, which would be elimination of more pavement out there to try to do more channelizing, and also help with some pedestrian issues that I'll talk about in a minute. So that's how this all started. Part of that grant, our match of the grant, was $100,000 that we put in the budget last year, and it was basically to overlay the whole area because it needs it. So that seemed like an easy way to show that we're matching the grant because Park Circle needs milled and overlaid. And since that was in last year's approved budget, the budget we're currently in, that money is available to mill and pave. So that kind of lends us to the next question: is it time for us to look at the operations of Park Circle? Because if we're going to pave it, we have that blank slate of blacktop. How do we want to mark it? How do we want to move forward? So what our proposal is on the traffic operation for Park Circle is to change it from what is known in the engineering world as a rotary operation to a roundabout operation. In a rotary operation, those were kind of common in the United States in the early 1900s up through about 1950s, 1960s. What happens is in a rotary that if you're the circulating traffic versus the traffic that's entering, you have to yield. So right now, if you drive out the Park Circle and you're going around the circle, somebody else enters, the person that's circulating is supposed to yield. I don't think many people think that way. I don't think many people drive into Park Circle thinking, if somebody enters, I have to yield, I have to yield. And you don't have to stand.
So you could potentially have to stop 5 times when you're going around the
Potentially,
circle.
that's right.
Yeah.
And if there's a lot of traffic volume, the rotaries were prone to what they call lockup, where a bunch of people are stacking up in the circle because they're yielding to the people entering. Rotaries, for those reasons, kind of fell out of favor, and they started across the nation doing roundabouts, which we have several of them in our community. The difference is with a roundabout is as you enter the circle, you slow down and yield. So all your yielding occurs on the branches are kind of feeding into the circle. I have a couple simulations of what we're proposing. One would be the existing operation, and then the other one is this proposed operation. I guess I'd like to explain a little bit more about this roundabout design. The first thing that kind of catches your eye is the blue area, which is kind of an oblong area that's commonly known as the apron or the truck apron, that what we're showing there is pushing it out toward the Virginia Avenue Memorial Boulevard area. The challenge, I should say, with this intersection is you basically have a separate intersection of Virginia and Memorial that's off of the circle. So to engage the circle into that traffic and eliminate the situation that's out there now that some people stop as they come into the circle, some people yield, it's kind of a hodgepodge. We want to get to a situation where everybody coming in is just yielding. So through a lot of iterations and a lot of head scratching and a lot of people involved in this, the idea was to come up with this more oblong apron that pushes it out towards Virginia Avenue, Memorial Boulevard, to create that yielding condition as you enter into it. The other thing is with the additional islands that can be constructed, you can see there's crosswalk now on the, like at 3 o'clock on the circle. Those don't exist now. There's no way to get across Memorial Boulevard safely. I think this would create 2 refuge islands that people could cross. And basically then we would have a crosswalk finally, after all these years, around the entire perimeter of the overall Park Circle area, which I think will be a big improvement for pedestrians. We show a bike lane on the west side because we had enough room to do that, to allow traffic coming down, bike traffic coming down Walnut to continue on Virginia Avenue, at least through this section. So that's kind of the overall plan. So I guess I'd like to show 2 simulations, if it's okay, just to give you a quick understanding what we're doing here.
Simulations with like moving cars and stuff?
Yeah.
Wow. Fancy.
So this is as it is now. This is how it operates now. And see, the traffic that's in the circle is supposed to yield. And this is based on actual counts. So this, the way the software works is it kind of simulates the amount of traffic that's out there now, the directions it's coming, and it allows us to model what's happening. So if you see that blue car coming around there, the red car came, the blue car had to stop in the circle. That's how it operates now. But oftentimes that person that's circulating, like the white car there now, they don't stop. And because they're used to roundabout operations where they have the right of way. So we have those kind of conflicts. In the proposed simulation, I'll pull it up here. This is the proposed situation, and we increased the traffic by 50% over what's out there now, because roundabouts generally have a much better capacity for allowing more traffic to flow through them because the traffic is yielding outside the circle. It's yielding as you enter.
Can you leave that up for a second?
Sure.
You're not raising the blue area, right? You're gonna paint that on the street.
Yeah, the proposal is to take that area and make it some sort of a texture or a colored paint on the pavement. What I'm thinking is like at the Maryland Theater in the courtyard, that kind of stamped asphalt.
Or like at the Terps Boulevard roundabout.
Terps Boulevard roundabout is like that as well. It's flush. Typically,
But that's a real circle.
yeah.
And I guess for me, I live in the South and I go past
Mm-hmm.
this circle every day. I have a couple of concerns. One is, if you paint that on people at nighttime, it's nice to look at it from a bird's eye view, but when you're driving and it's not raised, somebody's gonna drive straight through that area
Mm-hmm.
to get to Walnut like they've always done. I mean, that's inevitable. The second is where that black car, the white car's coming north right now.
Mm-hmm.
That picture you have is nice and flat. But right there, it takes a nosedive down into that circle, right at that location. And you saw it just in the simulation a few moments ago, where you had a bus entering from the south heading north, and right where it takes that sort of nosedive down into the circle, right where that red car is coming in, if you've got a car behind them and they now have to yield to that car coming around that circle, they're going to rear end them. I mean, that's going to happen because of, and I said something to the chief some time back about the speed that folks travel on that road. And the other is you have markings out there for pedestrians, and while it'll definitely have pedestrian flow to walk around it finally, the way that most folks walk around it, how you have the crosswalk shown, I understand on paper, you know what I mean? They have to be at 90 degrees, they have to be out of the intersection. But the fact is, where you place them down, folks walk around the circle in the most immediate direction available. You know, nobody walks down to the right towards Walnut and then comes across and up to the park. They just.
So you're saying like this one should be up here more to make it more.
And nobody's going to come down past Park Circle, Animal Hospital, walk across, then walk out, and then back around. It isn't going to happen. Nobody's going to do that to get over to Walnut.
So
And
more like this. That's what they're suggesting.
I'm saying nobody's going to do that. They're going to cut across that blue space that now is only painted and not demarked
Oh, I see.
to go across.
You
And
can't fix stupid though.
well,
I mean, really.
but the problem I have is right now, if you pulled up the traffic incident reports for that intersection, you're going to find it's very low. It doesn't even meet some of the more moderate areas in the city for accident occurrences. Even when we changed the upper portion, I think it was like 3 in 10 years.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reported accidents.
And I'm all for making these improvements, but not to the detriment of going from 3 accidents in 10 years to creating a number of accidents, because folks are going to rear end one another that now have to stop right where that white car is coming up because of the topography difference and the speed change heading north.
So you're saying people would rear end as you're entering the circle and yielding?
If this car has to stop right here, this red car is going to rear end them because it's just not a natural process of flow that folks have had decades of accustomed travel patterns to. And I think at nighttime, if you just paint that blue,
Well, you're not talking about painting that. That's actually gonna be like a
It'd be,
kind of
what we're thinking is stamped
texture.
asphalt,
Right.
could be painted a color.
But it won't be
And we can
clear.
put some sort of reflective
it'll be flat
material
on
in
the
there.
ground.
And I would imagine you do that so that fire trucks and big tractor trailers
Right.
and whatnot can
They
still
have
I
to use
completely understand the logic.
I think
That was my
though,
question. You need to have it flat or reasonably flat for large vehicles that can't make the radius. Is
That's
that
right,
correct?
yeah. What our work shows is that a car can make it, a bus can make it.
Right.
But like a tractor trailer or a fire truck, they would drive on the blue apron.
Right now, we have a cone that's right here, right?
Mhm.
And that's because folks are coming in and they're actually driving up on that. There is no crosswalk there, and folks cross right there. We have a big cone, a big traffic barrier cone up there to say, hey, people, there are folks walking
Yeah,
here.
we have a tree pit there that we never put a tree in. That's why we put that.
Rodney, Kristen raises a good point, but if you make the change, I mean, there must be some kind of cost considerations with this thing, aren't there? If you were to.
Yeah, and in the budget I've outlined.
Get
I mean,
expensive, wouldn't it?
I mean, basically, if we mill and pave, if we assume that we're doing that, we have to remark everything, and that's included in the budget numbers I put in here. That's the only real cost, is just the remarking of the street and the changing.
Which you're
of
gonna
some-
do anyway, because you're gonna
Yeah.
mill and pave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about building that thing, that blue area up.
Right.
That would be rather costly, wouldn't it?
If we raised it up, which
Yeah.
Councilman Alshar's absolutely correct, that's not unusual for those to be raised up. Assuming that would be a concrete apron, the blue area. The problem we have is right now around the circle itself, the yellow circle, there's a series of inlets that would all have to get moved out to the outside of the blue area, to the perimeter of the blue area. Between that and the concrete, we're estimating about $75,000 extra dollars.
And I'm all for the stuff from, we'll call it Memorial Boulevard down. I completely get all of that because that is a very wide road that doesn't need to be that wide, that needs fixed right now and is very hard for pedestrians to cross. And in fact, right now you got yellow signs up there that have an arrow with crossing,
Yeah.
but there's nothing that says yield to pedestrians. And anywhere in the crosswalks in that entire circle, there's nothing that says that cars have to yield to
Yeah,
pedestrians.
it's an afterthought.
And I look at what the changes on the other half are going to do to traffic flow in terms of provoking an accident. Like where that blue car just stopped behind that black bus,
But that's
the
typical.
way cars drive
roundabout.
through there.
That's typical roundabout operation though, is yielding.
Yeah, I think people will get it, and it will be overall a major improvement, and it will
I
enhance
think when the planning
neighborhood.
commission looked at it, we suggested that at least for the beginning years, you put signs well in advance about the roundabout, about yield ahead and things like that.
Well, change in traffic
Put yield
pattern.
ahead, change in traffic pattern, yield ahead, things like that. But it
Prepare
is
people to
common,
change
there's
their
more and more
behavior.
traffic circles, and they're all in the
Roundabout
format that you're
fashion
proposing.
rather than a rotary.
But Kristen, it is a legitimate concern about that flat area because people will wander out there. I don't know how to get around that.
Well, that doesn't, it's not gonna really change the fact that you're gonna have to be yielding to the same people. I mean, yeah, you could cut that.
You're
you
yielding
could-
right there now.
You could
instead
cut
of-
that, you could cut the circle a little short and go drive through the middle, but you're still gonna have to be yielding to the traffic
Right,
in the circle.
yeah, and you need that because if you have an inside lane and don't have it, people are gonna
Right.
go around the inside lane and cut
I mean,
through the people on the outside lane. You can't have that.
I'd almost rather you cut the oval out.
Well, I think that'll be too wide and almost act as a two-lane.
And really, the stamping and the paint just acts as visual cues more than anything.
Yes.
And if you stamp it, it kind of gives you a physical cue, because
Yeah,
it's like driving on
exactly.
rumble strips.
And
So
I do
people
think it's a
will
good idea to-
probably avoid driving on those just because that's how we're trained as drivers. But continue to touch on what you did there at the Park Circle Animal Hospital, because there's some improvements there to the traffic flow as well, right?
Yes. Right now, their building sits here, and basically this is like one giant entrance
Right.
along here. So I met with the owner of the other on Friday, and what we're proposing to do is have. What we're proposing to do is have two driveways, one here and one here, and closing all this. And the carrot for them is by pushing this out a little bit, we can reconfigure their parking area and get them at least 2 or 3 more parking spaces, which they really need. So I had a very positive meeting with Dr. Byers, and we're working towards that with them.
So if I'm coming from the south end and I want to go to Park Circle, I go right in.
You can go right in here.
How do I get back south on Virginia Avenue to my house?
You'd have to go back and go around the circle. would be the best way. But unlike now, once
And
you're
that's
in the
gonna-
circle,
that's
you
gonna
have
be-
the right of way.
Is that gonna be curved through there? The south end area, is that gonna be all curved through there?
Here?
No. Here.
No. This is the existing island that's there right
So it's
now.
gonna be street grade, so people aren't gonna do right in, right out, they're gonna go out of there and cut left.
They could. We could. Or I guess we could extend this island, but you could do that, yes.
Is there any reason it has to be right in, right out there?
Not really. Because by that time, there'd be, what we didn't like about this is they're coming into the circle.
Right.
But we thought it would make more sense down here where they're already beyond the circle. If they wanted to turn left there, I don't see that being a big problem. The good thing about if you did do this, though, once you're in the circle, you have the right of way. And you could go the whole way around without stopping. Right now, you'd have to potentially stop here. Well, there's stop signs and things around here now, but you'd have the right of way the whole way around the circle.
And then on the other side, on the Memorial Boulevard side, that it's a right in, right out as well. What is that orange thing in the middle of the road there?
It's basically a concrete median.
Okay, so that will be a concrete, so that has
Yes.
to be right in, right out.
Right.
So how do I get into Park Circle from the left? Yeah, if you're coming from Memorial Boulevard, how would you get into? You'd have to go all the way around the circle
and come in that way.
No, but I mean, they make a right, they want to go this way. I guess they just need to go over to that other driveway.
Yeah, it's right here, and that takes you up.
So they can't get back to Walnut?
If they're in here, they'd have to come out down here to go around the circle.
Well, I think overall, this is a great proposal. I think it will drastically improve things. It'll get this antiquated traffic operation into the 21st century. It'll make aesthetic improvements as well as improvements for pedestrians. The fact that it's been vetted by the Board of Traffic and Parking and has had community input, stakeholders in the immediate vicinity that support it, I think we should move forward with it.
And we've made a lot of changes, Mayor, and over the years that were radical changes for this city. And an example of that is Prospect Street, where it comes right down there, that used to always have the right-of-way that was backwards and nobody understood. That was forever. That change was made much to the success. Another change we made was at Fairgrounds Park, where we now have a stop sign that used to be the right-of-way. And again, it was something that seems strange, it's worked fine. And most importantly, for those of us who have lived here for an awful long time, who would have ever thought Locust, Jonathan, and Mulberry were just going to really be one-lane streets instead of two cars going down? So I think it's a very positive thing, and it brings us into the reality of what roundabouts are like everywhere. That's one of the problems. That's the main problem. And almost every single accident that has occurred here has occurred with people from out of town, because they have no clue that this is opposite of everything else in the world. And that's why we really need to do it.
Which have been few, if any, accidents.
I agree. But the problem is things are going to take place with additional traffic, and it just makes sense to do it the right way.
Not a lot of accidents, but I would submit a lot of near misses. A lot of people just don't know what they're doing, and they slam on the brakes and talk to each other a little bit and then keep going.
Ronnie, I want to put my 2 cents in here too. I think that's a really good plan. Obviously, you put a lot of time and a lot of thought, a lot of people into this plan.
Right.
And I want to make this observation. There's a roundabout going to Cedar Falls. It's a build-up roundabout, but that doesn't stop, even the fact that it's built up doesn't stop the trucks in particular and some of the cars from just going up to the build-up, up on the build-up part. They just do that for whatever reason. So I don't see that this is going to be a greater safety problem. And if it is, hey, hopefully we'll be back.
I think Philippe Dagers is an indication. People, you'll drive over that crushed concrete, but not, I think it'll work. And
And initially, you'll have all kinds of signs, right, indicating that
Yeah.
change in traffic patterns and so on.
Envision our variable message
Yeah.
signs, that would say, yield ahead, basically, is what we're telling people to do. Yield as you enter.
So people will certainly get used to it.
I think so.
And I might say that 112, about 160,000 is state money of one kind or another. It's not city money.
Right.
And we need to resurface that anyhow. It's due
Right,
for
that's our share.
resurfacing.
Right.
So it's a good time to do it. We have a grant, and I assume that the stormwater and the Chesapeake Bay grant, because we're removing impervious surface.
Exactly, cleaning the water and,
So it improves the environment as well as better traffic.
that's the goal
flow.
of that project, yeah.
Yeah.
My
Are you-
only
is this
suggestion would be
bike lane,
that,
is that new being added?
Yeah, we'll have enough width there that we could add it in there.
the what? Where are you talking about?
The bike lane along the park side.
Yeah. I don't mind the bike lanes, but on Walnut, we've added a bike lane. I can't drive, and I mean, I just can't. I mean, I realize I drive, a large SUV, but I don't know who measured those widths, but there is no way for me to stay within those lines the entire length of that Walnut Street. It just isn't.
My only suggestion would be that the Virginia Avenue entrance not be right in, right out. Because it makes perfect sense if you're leaving there to be able to, and I think people are gonna do it, they're just gonna turn left onto Virginia if that's where they need to go.
Okay.
And I don't see why that
Out
would
of the animal
necessarily.
hospital.
Right, on the Virginia Avenue side there, I just don't see people going right if they can turn, if there is not a concrete median that blocks them, they're going to turn left. I would, I mean, just because it
I don't think that's a
makes
problem.
sense. But I don't see how that would really create a whole lot of
Yeah, they have good visibility.
safety
coming around the
conditions
circle.
there. I
think that'd
mean,
be fine.
obviously they'd have to yield to people coming from their right. So, just my thought on that.
The safety issue, like I said, for me, the only safety issue that I see in this design, and I'm fine with the state's money that's gonna be spent on all of this stuff along Memorial Boulevard, is this yield coming into the circle from the south end. Like, I just
Maybe the
just think
solution
the way
there to
that-
slow
the way that
people
that
down is
road
do some of
drops
those
down.
rumble strips coming into the circle there from the Virginia Avenue side to
Been
slow
done,
people
yeah.
down.
The neighbors may have some say in that,
Right.
but it's been done.
That might be one possible solution. Or a little blinking, solar-powered blinking yellow light to get people to slow down at night, maybe is a solution. I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there.
If we move forward, I guess the motion next week would have 4 parts to it. One would be to approve the contract for the bioretention area. One would be a change order to Craig Paving's current paving contract that they bid last year, competitively bid to do the paving work and the pavement markings. I guess the third part would just be to authorize us to implement the roundabout operation. And then the fourth would be, over at the animal hospital, would be some sort of a license agreement to allow them to use that extra land for their parking.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
thank you. Last but certainly not least for this work session is an update on Catalyst Project Number 1, the new office building. Welcome, everyone. Mr. Free, Mr. Bowman, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to
So,
staff.
Thank you. And by way of introduction, I would like to introduce representatives from Bowman Development, Don Bowman as founding partner and Rob Free as president. And we were last in front of you in November when we issued a request for qualifications for the office development and recruitment project, which is Catalyst Project Number 1 under the Community City Center Plan. And we received one response to our RFQ, that being from Bowman Development. And as a way of background, since it's been some time since we presented on this project, that this is one of 8 Catalyst projects under the 10-year city center plan. The goal of this project is to position downtown to compete in the region with Class A office space offering using portions of the central lot. It's an estimate of 154,000 square feet of new Class A space across 3 buildings in portions of the central lot. The project would happen in phases, and some additional points related to the background on the project is that preliminary concepts of the proposed buildings leave space for events like Blues Fest. So especially to our residents listening from home, that this project would accommodate both new office space as well as continued programming of the central lot for community events, as well as the recruitment of tenants looking for Class A office space would also have a spin-off effect, which would benefit existing Class B space in the downtown area. So we see that this would benefit existing properties in utilizing vacant and underutilized property in the downtown as well. Recognizing that some tenants would steer toward the Class A space, others may choose the option of B space as an alternative. So our timeline and our current status, we issued the RFQ in December. There was a deadline for submission in March. We received the submission from Bowman Development. We've met with Don and Rob and Jeff from their office to further explore their interest in the project and to begin to outline some of the key components and next steps in the project. And we see that there's 2 phases of next steps, one which is exploratory and the second which is a pre-development phase. So the goal of the exploratory phase is to the first goal is an analysis-backed determination that the site is suitable for construction. And we would provide any existing information that we have about the site. We would also explore our ability to conduct additional site analysis, which might include environmental impact studies, subsurface investigations, surveys, land surveys for easement or right restrictions. And we would return at a future work session with more information about this portion of next steps with both scope of work and cost. The second part of our exploratory phase is a determination that the building can be leased at rates that will attract tenants. And we'll use the assumptions and the models provided by Urban Partners as a guide, but we'll also do some additional testing of the figures, identifying and re-identifying the incentives that would be used as a part of the project, showing the rent impact of those incentives, review the figures, do additional testing, cost outlining, and additional level of pro forma analysis. This work could be done at no cost, and we see that as a natural next step for staff and Bowman Development Group to work on together. After we determine that, first, the site is buildable, and second, that the lease rates work, then there would be a series of next steps in what we call a pre-development phase. And I want to turn this over to Kathy to talk through these portions.
Good afternoon. There's 4 aspects to the pre-development phase. The first involves design concepts and building plans. Bowman Development is proposing to engage a design professional to assist with development of more detailed designs based on the concepts we've already seen. These tools would help market the building and shorten the construction time frame. The next aspect is sort of, you might think of it as pre-approvals, but really it'll be approvals, plan and permit approvals. Bowman would like to get those approved as soon as possible, the building plans, the site plan, and the Historic District Commission approvals, to either prior to or simultaneously with tenant recruitment, so that prospective tenants will know what the quality of the project is and have some certainty at the speed at which construction could begin, because all the approvals will be in hand. The Planning Commission and the Historic District Commission can provide approvals of site plans and building elevations as soon as those plans are available. The site plan approval is good for 2 years. The HDC approval is good until replacement plans come forward. The building permit for the shell of the building can be reviewed and approved as soon as plans come forward, and that approval is good for 6 months. If the recruitment phase goes longer than 6 months, we can always do extensions of the approvals for the building permit. And if we're at the point where the site plan is expired, we can also grant that extension, but we're not foreseeing 2 years out as an issue. The next would be engagement of a broker leasing consultant. Bowman Development would like to explore engaging a broker leasing consultant to assist with attracting tenants, because a big part of this project is to attract new tenants into our market. And so that's one aspect of this pre-development phase. And then the next, while we're in the pre-development phase, we're proposing that we develop a memorandum of understanding between the city and Bowman Development on all those aspects. Then, once we reach the development stage, that's when we foresee that we would develop the development partnership agreement, which would be based on the RFQ that you reviewed last fall.
So what we see is continued work in more the exploratory phase, as well as some preparatory work in the pre-development phase. Returning to you when we have more information about how components of this project would work and any expenditures that would be associated with the project. So right now what we're looking for is general support in the direction that we're going, and for us to gather more information and to return back to you. We'd also like to use this time if you have any questions or wish to discuss any aspects of it, and bringing Don and Rob into the conversation for any questions.
I just want to start by saying thank you to Bowman Development for responding to the RFQ. My colleague, the mayor of Salisbury, has told me of efforts of their city to develop a lot that they own, and it took them 10 years to identify someone who would even be willing to step forward with interest. So to me, even though only one group responded to this RFQ, I'm very pleased and proud that we got a response, A, and B, that the response came from Bowman Development, who has a proven track record of getting stuff done. And your commitment to downtown, Mr. Bowman, has been unparalleled up until this point, and I really appreciate your interest in continuing to help us move Hagerstown forward. And I think this is a great project. I'm pleased with staff's work on this and their ability to take this ball and keep running with it and moving it towards the goal line. And so I just want to thank and congratulate everybody for going this far, and I hope the council will endorse your continued work. Mr. Brubaker.
Yes, I also want to thank you for responding and coming in tonight. My continuing concern, I've supported this project, but I'm concerned that we look for a name brand, a major tenant, a tenant that will be stable, occupy a significant amount of space, and I know you'd be interested in cash flow, and that really brings something to downtown that we don't have. I mean, this might sound like pie in the sky, but something people can even identify with. I hope we don't wind up with just a general office building with a mixture of professional tenants that are, I don't know, don't lend those aspects to it. That's why I've supported doing this on the surface lot and not putting the money into some of the other buildings in town at the moment. It was to show that we could get Class A space and bring a Class A tenant. And I just hope we're on the same page in terms of where we're going with this. That's what I understand that the urban partners were thinking of when they did this. And, you know, and I hope it's feasible. And I'll say, having spent my career working outside of Hagerstown, that I think they may be hard to find, but there are people out there that don't know we exist, don't know the assets we have in this city, in this whole valley, don't appreciate it, and would like it here if only they knew our opportunities existed. I don't know the magic solution of reaching them, but I, you know, I hope that that's the sort of firm. It could be somebody that's just down the road outside Washington or Baltimore that wants to put another operation up here, but a quality tenant. And I think reaching them is going to be the secret of this. Is the broker, I mean, who is that, whose dime is the broker going to be, or is it going to be the broker's dime on a contingency basis?
I think those are all things that we want to explore.
Okay.
We want to explore how a broker relationship would work, what are the costs,
Okay.
and come back with you with more information.
Okay.
In most cases, the broker doesn't get paid till something happens, so.
So I said contingency basis, yeah.
Would you
And
like to
to
add?
answer your question about the quality of the, to answer your question about the quality of the tenant, you know, we're on the hook, and it's going to have to be a pretty good tenant for us to take the step. It's a kind of a giant step. First of all, if it's not a quality tenant, we won't be able to get financing. So, and it's going to have to be a reasonable length of commitment on their part.
Mr. Munson?
Well, Martin said it all, really. I mean, the key is finding that anchor tenant. And that's what we sort of concentrated in our proposal. We're going to be speaking with consultants and brokers that are not from this area, that are from the metropolitan area, one, to get their feelings whether this project is even feasible, what the hook's going to need to be. There's going to need to be a hook and bait here for the attraction part of it. And just see how reasonable and practical we are with this idea. And we're going to begin those interviews next week.
Great. Well, I think one of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, but Urban Partners sort of broke down was that with all of the incentives and things that we can do to make this project viable, you know, new office buildings are being built in and even outside the city of Hagerstown. It's just that we want there to be a reason for them to build them in downtown. And hopefully in your continued exploration of the feasibility and the pre-development, you know, that aspect of it will be nailed down to really show that, you know, you can build it in downtown and gain a lot from being in this neighborhood for at least as much, if not hopefully less, than what you could build a brand new office building off of Eastern Boulevards, let's say, or even farther out where we see new construction. Mr. Munson?
Preliminary work will give us a lot of idea. The preliminary work will give us a big idea of what the cost will be.
Right. Sort of take what Urban Partners did and just nail it down a little more.
Exactly. We have a conference call scheduled next week with Urban Partners, and we'll analyze that with our financial people, so we truly understand where we are on costs and where we are in the effectiveness of the incentives that are already identified and what they mean to a tenant.
It really would, this would be one of those projects that would be ideal if we had something like the CRIZ that I know staff have done a lot of homework on from up in Pennsylvania. I do think, by the way, just as an aside, that there may be potential to get something like that. When Senator Rosapep came to town a few weeks ago, and he's a big financial guy, he's a money guy, he sounded pretty receptive to allowing Hagerstown to be sort of a model or a case study in the state of Maryland for the essential idea being that any state tax revenue that would be generated in the development could go into the debt service to pay for that development, in the end being a net gain for the local economy and eventually for the state economy, because they wouldn't be losing anything that they had previously been getting, but would sort of be sacrificing it in the meantime for the sake of new development. So hopefully we can continue that conversation with our delegation and some other key folks in the legislature to see if we can have Hagerstown be that kind of model. That would be, I don't know if that would coincide with what we're doing here, but that would just be a nice bonus, I guess, if we could get that done.
I testified trying to get municipalities included in general state bills on that subject.
Donnie, thank you for having confidence and faith in the city of Hagerstown, and Rob. Let me just ask Jill a question here. The distance, and I know that's a concept, but I'd like to understand what your thinking is. The distance between the Elizabeth Hager Center and the new building, would that allow cars to go into and out of the back end of the parking lot?
conceptually, in the earlier renderings, it was a pedestrian walkway that would pass alongside the new construction in the Elizabeth Hager Center. Not so much for vehicles, but for pedestrians, and potentially to allow for outdoor cafe area should the first floor
Okay.
tenant be a restaurant.
So there will be another design to get them into that back into the parking lot.
But it would not
Right.
affect traffic in the rear.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because existing alley, we wouldn't affect traffic.
Exactly.
And while you're there, Donnie, thank you for Antietam Street. It's looking better than ever.
It's a shame it's a hole, but it,
Well, it was a shame what was there before, so great improvement, actually.
While you're just talking a little bit off the subject, take a walk back Artist Alley, and you'll see
The new bridge.
going across from the parking
Okay.
deck into the second floor of our Walker House office.
Yeah, staff have kept us up to date on that and shared pictures with us, and it looks really nice.
Could have used it, that one opening was absolutely pouring back there.
It'll look a lot better when it's finished, but we're getting
Yeah.
closer.
Well, again, I want to thank you for your interest and your investment that you've already made in downtown and that you are willing to continue to make. I think that's really positive for Hagerstown.
Well, the city staff's been good to work with so far, and in fact, they've been a bit of a taskmaster, keeping us on track.
It's good. It's what we
And
like to
so
hear.
we look forward to continue working this thing through so we truly understand the project and the ability to make this thing happen.
Well, Kathy sent us an email this morning, I think it was, telling us how fast she could get permits through, so
That's right.
I hope we get-
on the hook
I
now.
hope we get an opportunity to test her.
So I don't, you go ahead.
this is one of these projects, in my opinion, the only time we lose is if we don't even try.
That's
I
right.
mean, we have so much to gain here with very little investment.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any objection with staff moving forward as proposed and the recommended next steps? And then they'll bring us an update later, probably in the summer, I would imagine. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll have, or I guess we can adjourn our work session. We'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll reconvene for a special session in 5 minutes. Do we have a motion to go into special session?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of going into special session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. We are now in our 70th special session. First, to consider the fiscal year 2015-16 introduction of the ordinance for the tax rate.
Mayor, hereby move for the tax rate. Budget.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the introduction of an ordinance to establish city's tax rates for the fiscal year July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2016 on the basis of .913 cents per 100 of assessed value of all real property and 2.283 per 100 of assessed value of all business personal property within the city of Hagerstown. These rates reflect a 1.5 cent increase for real property and a 3.8 cents per $100 for business personal property over the current year.
Second.
There's a motion made by Mr. Metzner and seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion?
I'd just like to point out the obvious, that when we start on this process, the tax rate was going to be increased 5 cents. It's now down to 1.5 cents. And I think the mayor and the council have done, and staff have done a really good job of finding ways to cut that number.
And if I'm correct, Mayor, this reflects a combined city-county tax rate less than it was 10 years ago.
And depending on your assessed value, it may end up meaning that you're not paying even as much as you did 10 years ago.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. It's a 5-0 introduction. Introduction of the FY 15-16 budget.
Mayor, hereby move for introduction of ordinance to adopt the city's budget for fiscal year July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2016, the total amount of $125,922,673.
Second that as well.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, second by Mr. Munson. Any discussion?
Yes, I think this was a give and take process. We spent a lot of time on it. As Councilman Munson said, we reduced the taxes necessary to fund this budget by 70% through the process. I think there were a lot of compromises. Everybody gave up something they wanted, and I think we've laid a basis for the next city manager to find her way next year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. 5-0, the introduction, the ordinance is introduced, so this will be back again next week. And at this time, we will have the city administrator's comments.
None from me this evening.
All right, council comments, Mr. Menzner.
Congratulations to everyone who had anything to do with Memorial Park. It is just a wonderful, wonderful place and truly is educational. I have the feeling that some of us older folks may enjoy it more than the younger folks as far as seeing some of the dates of things happening in this community that we can still remember, like the beginning of the Longmeadow Shopping Center and things like that. But it truly is an educational place and something to be proud of. And I know it's staff that was behind it, and I think originating probably with Bruce. So congratulations to everybody. It was a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Ms. Nye.
All right, we have dirt bikes that are on the rise. We know of these 5 in the north end of town, to the east end of town. We want to be watching out for them. They're not stopping at stop signs. They're popping wheelies in the middle of the street. So it's already been turned into the police department. Hopefully we'll be able to get a handle on it. It's 2 yellow ones, 1 white one, 1 red one, and another yellow one, I believe. They're moving pretty quickly. Also, there is somebody who's doing an IRS scam. The neighbor had received phone calls and had gone into IRS, and it is known that it is a scam that's coming on the telephones. And the bowling alley at the end of Potomac Street for us, that does not include us, but will include us, because now it seems as though we are going to be having bands and dancing. So that will be into the wee hours. And
the 7:10? Is that?
Yes, and that could in fact become a nightmare for us. This was discussed once before when they had obtained their liquor license. And again, what happens is, and why it's our responsibility for the most part, is because the traffic, the parking will be over in the shopping center lot, because that's where it's available to be put. So I saw the big signs on the big tractor and trailers coming soon, all right? So I don't know what will be happening there, but I don't look for it to be a good thing. Also, I was asked, and I honestly don't remember, Mayor, and you can either email me to this, but why is it that we want to do our own liquor board?
Well,
I mean, I've been given different scenarios, but why was it when it was discussed here?
I don't think we actually moved forward with that
We didn't
proposal.
move forward with it, but what was the statement? What was it for?
The
I mean,
rationale? being
yeah,
that they're-
yeah, I mean,
They're out of
you know-
touch, they're not responsive to our needs in terms of economic development.
I mean, are we looking for more liquor to
No.
be served?
No, I think the
That-
point is, in terms of, especially things, like, an example would be those stupid fences that they make them put up on the sidewalk.
But I don't
Like
have a
the-
problem with those, because we have those who do drink to excess when it's not supposed to be, and there's things that can happen, so.
Right, but those fences don't keep anyone under 21 from drinking alcohol. I mean, they serve absolutely no purpose. So in
Well,
other words.
hopefully the other people are on top of it, so.
Well, and the other reason was, they have we talked about before, like the seating restrictions and things of that nature that aren't conducive to properties that we have in downtown where, maybe you want to have a bistro that serves wine and beer with dinner, but because of certain seating requirements, you're not allowed to do that. Now, we did get some legislation passed
I
through the
thought we
state
had.
to do that, but
Yeah.
having our own liquor board, we wouldn't have to keep going to ask other people what we can do to benefit our own local economy. But I don't think the goal is to expand drinking establishments.
No,
in the
that was
city
my
of
biggest
Hagerstown.
concern, because I said, really, I wasn't paying attention to it, and I needed to ask,
It was
because
more
that was a big
Economic
concern of
development,
mine.
right. And just some practicalities and to be able to have more control and to give our police some more enforcement in the process of these things. That's another key aspect of it.
Okay. I just needed to know, all right? And then also, again, I'm throwing out that corner of Cannon Avenue up there where you go into that park. It really needs to be looked at. It needs to be monitored.
Thank
And
you.
I don't know, other than setting one of the auxiliary policemen up there so they can see what's going on.
Thanks. Mr. Munson.
I too would like to offer my congratulations on Memorial Park. I've been going to public ceremonies for almost 40 years now, and I have to say that that was one of the finest ceremonies that I have ever been to. And I know how much work and how much time and how much effort it took to put it together. And congratulations to everybody that made it happen. It's a great addition to Hagerstown.
I agree. Mr. Elshire.
Well, I wasn't at the opening, but I walked through that park probably 3 times a week, so.
We was waiting to see all those little heads bobbing up and down.
They don't get roused about that early. The other thing is I wanted to thank What's Next. I think while we had the summer slide presentation, we had a lot of things on the agenda tonight, and I think that's going to be bigger and more successful and a better event than we even envisioned from the presentation this evening. The only downside is that they plan on having pop-up shops, so I'm going to be struggling between jumping the slide and I don't think I'll be participating in that event. The other thing, and Rodney already left, and it's unfortunate because I felt like we beat on him a good bit tonight on the number of the issues, and I wanted to make sure that he got thanks as well. I also walk over in I guess what we traditionally refer to as the West End across Burhands pretty regular, and just about a month ago I was thinking that area was in more dying need of sidewalk than any other area I could think of, with the number of cars that go out Burhands into the West End and towards Vasel Boulevard. And I saw this week that the new sidewalks went in, and they're perfect. They're the best thing that I think has happened to pedestrian connectivity in the town in quite some time, and they're very good for the community. The last thing is, speaking of pedestrians, I think I read there was a child hit here yesterday at the corner of Potomac and Franklin, and it reminded me that several weeks ago there was a parent who had a child standing out on the corner with a sign saying, "I took something from my mom, and so I have to stand out here as penance," basically. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm certainly not a parent to be giving parents advice, but that isn't where I'd want my young child standing at any time of day or evening. And so folks need to think a little bit more about what positions they may be placing their kids in when they allow them into those busy intersections.
Mr. Brubaker.
Yes, I'll reinforce what Penny said about motorized vehicles. I'll call them of different strange vehicles, ATVs, motorbikes, mopeds, being driven by people of uncertain age in the East End, because I've encountered them several times, in turning onto Jefferson and having come down the one-way stretch the wrong way right at you. So it is an issue, and I'm sure you all are aware of it, but it's reinforced that it happens, and it's happened on different streets there to me more than once. I don't know why, it seems to be the East End happens more than other places.
They're in my neighborhood too. I like the alleys too.
They like the alleys, then they like to go shoot right over into the fairground, and then they're uncatchable over there, and then they shoot back out on Cleveland Avenue.
And I regret missing the dedication of Memorial Park on Saturday morning due to a death in the family, and congratulations to everyone involved. Good work.
We certainly recognize both of you who couldn't be there. It really was an outstanding event. I had so many people come up to me and tell me what a great event it was and how proud they are of Hagerstown. Jacob Wheaton had, I think, over 20 people who came from all around the country. I mean, they single-handedly boosted the economy of Hagerstown, at least for one night. And they visited Rose Hill Cemetery, which was a major sponsor of the event, and printed the program, so I'm going to thank them. Certainly want to give a shout out to the staff, Bruce especially for cultivating the seed of that, the idea for that park, and certainly Rodney and Junior, and also Steve Bachmiller for all the historical research that went into it, and for bringing everyone together. A descendant of Jonathan Hager being there. I mean, it really was fantastic. And all the people who participated, the family members, the descendants, including Mr. Messner, really, I think, made that day even more special. So I just think it's another fantastic addition to our already wonderful park system. I also it's been a busy week. Last Wednesday, I stopped by the opening of Brett Wilson's office in the South End Shopping Center, so just so everybody knows where that is, and feel free to contact your representative in the state legislature. But he has a nice office there, and I was glad to be able to visit him there at that location. Last Thursday was a event for the Discovery Station, a 10-year anniversary, and that event, Councilmember Munson was there. Really turned out to be a tribute to Marie Byers and all the work that she's been influential in getting done there. And so I want to congratulate them and recognize them on their efforts. And also Saturday was the Day of Hope at Wheaton Park, and it was the Hagerstown Hopes at Dobbs Woods Park. So it was definitely a busy weekend, and always something going on in Hagerstown. So thanks everybody for a great evening, and congratulations to all the University System of Maryland graduates that I'll be going to see shortly. Thank you very much.
Right on time.
That's right.